just had to hear the words.
But you're actually publishers as well, besides editing.
We help people self-publish. We are not traditional publishers.
Correct.
And there are all degrees of people who help people self-publish. The big online publishers like Ex Libris,
Okay.
work on one level. We work on a much smaller, more intimate level.
Explain to our audience what you mean by different levels and where you're comfortable at, where your clients are comfortable with you.
Well, what you have, in the past, you had nothing but big publishers.
Mm-hmm.
You had to woo them and become involved. After that, the next step was vanity publishers.
And what's the difference in Vanity Press now?
Vanity Publish would work with a small author, well, an author who had just a book or two, and they weren't looking for paying them a lot of money up front like big publishers would. And they weren't necessarily looking like paying them a lot of commissions. They were just, you know, hey, I got a book I want to publish because I went sailing and I got a trip. You know, or I have a book that I want to publish because it reflects animals that I've been involved with. So that would be a vanity publisher in the old days, and they were very expensive.
Like how much?
The setup fees were $5,000 to $10,000
Just for setup.
just for setting up, and before you even got any books or anything like that. Then they might have sold you books, or they might have sold the books themselves under their name and paid you a royalty. Yeah. Today the world's
But
changed.
the basic difference is you pay them, unlike traditional publishers who pay you to buy your manuscript.
Right.
Yeah. And today it's all changed because of digital publishing. Now that's been good and it's been bad in a sense. 4 or 5 years ago, there were probably 170,000 books published in the United States.
Okay.
Today that figure's up around 400,000.
Really?
Yes, it has jumped in a quantum leap because of digital publishing. And so what we did is we found our niche. I have to say that I was in publishing also supplemental books for children's market,
Okay.
for primary grades.
In the New England
And-
area?
No, it was in California.
California.
So that's why it didn't scare me to go into it. I was in that from 1977 to 1991.
So you had a lot of experience.
Yes.
He could talk to printers. He knew, he knew the questions.
I knew the language and,
Sure.
and knew how to set up books, and so it was not a big jump for us to go into it, but it was because we hadn't been doing it, and we
Sure.
had to set up new computer programs and all that. So what we do is, if an individual has a book and they have it in, let's say, a Word document, they come to us and they say, well, I have this book and it may or may not have images. How do I get from my Word document to the point where I have some books on hand? And we walk them through and we do all the work that gets them to that point. However, what we do also is we keep them involved in the process all the way along. So they're part
How
of it.
involved, John? Explain that to me.
Well, okay, they send us a Word document. And Nancy takes a look at it.
Yeah,
Right.
I do a critique first and let them know if I feel it needs editing,
Okay.
which is tricky.
Have you turned down people?
A couple.
A couple.
A couple that just, we weren't a fit for them.
It wasn't a fit for you and a
Yeah.
fit for them, right?
Or we honestly felt it wasn't going to succeed.
Yeah.
But in most cases, you know, I get the thankless job of telling people it's not quite ready for prime time. And some people take that very well. Some people, it's a
Right,
shock.
it's tough to take sometimes. It's
Yeah.
your baby there.
So I try to walk them through what I would do with that book.
Yes.
Sometimes it's simply a proofreading.
Uh-huh.
You know, things you didn't learn in 8th grade English.
Right.
Sometimes I'm seeing contradictions in facts and, you know, just spelling a name one way here and another way there, you know, that
Yep.
kind of consistency errors. The style of the book, if it's age appropriate, if it's meant for a certain age,
Uh-huh.
if it's genre appropriate, if it's a military thriller, is it thrilling?
Right.
You know? And I have to sit them down and talk to them about all that. And I have degrees of proofreading services, from just straight proofreading to light text editing, heavy text editing.
And what
And
is light text editing and heavy text? Explain that to the audience.
Light is basically serious, heavy check of grammar. Sometimes rearranging sentences to add more interest to how it reads. When I talk about heavy text editing, it's much more picking up a block of text and putting it somewhere else altogether.
Okay.
Maybe rearranging chapters, working on the flow of the book, which is a big undertaking.
That's sort of like development editing, isn't it?
You could say so.
Yeah.
And then I've had one case where I did a complete rewrite of a book and had to tell the woman the book wasn't quite ready for prime time, and she said, well, can you fix it? And I explained what it would take, and she said, let's do it.
Go for it.
She was a wonderful storyteller,
Uh-huh.
but she was a nurse. You know, she didn't know how to write. She sat down, took 8 months off, and wrote a book. I wouldn't do my own nursing.
Right.
Yeah, and she knew that she needed help doing the editing.
Right.
So that was a complete, very unusual circumstance.
That sounds like that's a ghostwriter story.
It is.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's funny when she sends me the reviews she gets that have her name in them, but we both know and we wink.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and it turned out to be a wonderful relationship.
Oh, that's super.
Yeah.
And she's now working on another book.